This video is a brief overview of the field trips component that is still a work in progress. We haven't completed it at this point, but it's starting to work its way out. They start from the teacher screen field trips, and we have a list of field trips based on their date, identifier, type of activity, and so on. Click on here to open it, and we get a series of tab screens so that we can try and keep everything in one place instead of moving around considerably. The idea with the cover is it summarizes everything in a brief format. As the name of the trip, we call this the marquee. Sort of, this is what's going to stand out on the posters or whatever you do. What grades, the purpose of the trip, the type, the students, supervisors, and all these things aren't filled out yet. They're just in draft form. The cost per person actually is calculated in this system, and the budget is in here as well. The departure dates and that sort of thing. So it's a capsule of what the trip is all about. So when you open the cover, you know, oh, that's that trip. Okay. And the concept now is, in the process of doing field trips, somebody comes up with an idea, creates the concept, shares it with some fellow teachers, but then they need approval. So typically the steps are to get a concept created, get the concept approved, and then proceed to flesh out the budget and the itinerary and all the different information, and come back later on with a subsequent approval. So we've set this sheet up as we call again the marquee with the name of the trip, and it's self-dated, the grades, or sometimes classes, or sometimes groups. Maybe it's the chess club or the photography group that's going on a field trip to Algonquin Park, whatever. So the purpose of the trip is so we can put some explanation as to why we're doing this trip. And the type comes from a choice of various types, and of course you can edit that and add to it. And the type of destination is important because we have to know how this thing is being handled, whether it's a wilderness trip or going to a campground, it's a ski resort, or whatever. And again, it's editable so that we can keep this current for what you're doing. The duration, in this case, we just chose multiple overnights, but it could be a day trip or overnight trip. Frequency is if it's many troops of the same group. If they're all going to, you have to arrange a bus to take people to a practice field at the skis hill or something. That sort of thing is different. The distance is set up as in the metro area, within 50 kilometers in the province, within Canada, it's in the United States, or it's overseas and you need to put the country in. And the distance from the school, of course, is just more important, of course, if it's only 25 kilometers than 3,000, but puts it into perspective. We then have a spot for the students, as how many students we're estimating the preliminary numbers are, and in the supervisors, and you can see we still have some graphical glitches here, but how many female, how many males, how many volunteers, female and male, that we expect we will need. And the cost per person can either be a budget guess, or we'll show you in a few minutes how you can calculate that out. The transportation is the type of transportation, and you might have multiple types in this case. And arranged to date is basically meaning what types of transportation have you arranged to date, and this shows none, so we should be putting none in here. The departure date is such and such. From will be the city it's from. If you're leaving from your own hometown or whatever, and your destination is within Canada, are there interim stops? Are you, for example, flying from Vancouver to Toronto, or are you flying from Hanoi to Da Nang, or that sort of thing? And then the return date is returning from and it's returning to, which location would it be? For example, Vancouver Airport, Hanoi Airport, Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, whatever. And the length of trips would be in days. And the organizer, in case we've got our infamous Julia Roberts in here, and that brings in, you choose the teacher, and that links them into all of their information as well. Sorry. And advance notice, usually these trips require advance notice, so we're giving you the option to check off what it is. Continuing along, we'll move to the itinerary, and it is a list of places and times that you're going. So you just click on the plus button. It then creates a new entry. You can put the date the time, the activity. For example, if you're arriving or flight departs or anything like that, and the location. So you can quickly build an itinerary. It sorts itself by date and by hour. It self-sorts itself. The budget is a similar format. You can create a budget item. You can then type in what the item is, bus trip to YVR for 40 people or whatever it is, the supplier, for example, a bus company or an airline company or a travel agency or a caterer. And the quantity is the number and the dollars and the cost per item. It totals it, and you're all set. There should be a total here at the bottom. Okay. Hotels are done almost the same way. You can just add a hotel. The type of, is it a hotel, motel, campground, airline, whatever, supplier, the location, rooms, the rate, the budget amount, and the actual paid, because we do have this budget versus paid, because you may end up with a trip that's gonna whack on you. And okay, travel is the same thing. We have to, for example, the type here is planes, could be, parent cars, subways, taxis, vans, etc. From the supplier, the tickets, the price, and the actual amount paid. Staffing, we're trying to set it up. We've already set this up now, just as an example. This is the list of all the available staff and volunteers, people that we know as volunteers, and we can just click here to add the person to the list, and their position comes out. So you can see this is on the people we have, their phone numbers, their emails, so that we can contact them, and so on. And the passengers, again, that would be the students. So this is the student population. This is students taking the trip. And again, it's the same thing. You're going through here and you have them by grade. So you can choose them and put them in depending on how it goes. Payment, again, it's the same thing. The students who have been selected to go on the trip show up on the student payment. The teachers and then this is the entry for their payment. How much you see, we put in $600 so far. The teachers are the same way, and how much, and the total versus the budget. Okay. The contacts, again, we've got the contact information for the students here, so that we can provide that to the teacher before they leave, and they can have that information. Medical, we have got, this isn't quite complete, we need more information, but we need the staff always to be carrying the medical information for the students, and this information, as you can see, is all unknown because I haven't filled that information in this test. The documents are, for example, you need to know the people's their health company, their health number, their passport number, the passport expiry, passport company, and their government IDs, and that sort of information is really required to be taken. Right? In fact, we should probably put in here, because we already collect that information, we could put it into a PDF to carry with the teacher. The medical equipment is a kind of interesting thing. It's set up is based on the time of emergency services are available, and it's a very extensive list, which is more geared to, it's basically, if you're going to the museum, you do need a couple of things to take with you, but it depends whether the class is a grade 2 class or grade 12 class, that sort of thing. But this is a good starting point. And lastly, the contingencies, we haven't filled it out, and the consent form is just in its draft form. Yeah, so in a nutshell, that is the field trip background. And of course, you can create a PDF, which puts the whole thing into a PDF and can be then taken, emailed, and what have you. Okay.